Welcome to abombtozzzax. With me, Colin Holt. And my friends, Dan Snellgrove and Jamie Firth. Here they come! Hello, welcome back to abombtozzzax with me, Colin Holt, my friends Jamie and Dan. Say hi, Jamie.
Hello.
Here's lovely Jamie, and here's Dan.
Hi.
Hi, Dan. Dan, who looks a lot like the absorbing man, Cole Crusher Creel, a Marvel villain. I'm afraid, did you see someone tweeted us that he has been cast, I'm afraid, Dan. He has been cast in the Marvel Universe.
What?
Oh, he was cast by a very hunky, good-looking man. He wasn't a good Cole Crusher Creel. Not that you're not a good-looking guy, but I haven't watched that episode. It was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., apparently. Anyway, let's explain what this show is. This is where me and my two friends talk about characters from the Marvel Universe. We're going through every single one from A to Z, abombtozzzax, as listed in the Marvel Comics, Marvel Unlimited app, which I strongly suggest you get, so you can read them all with us. And we discuss the funny little things they get up to, and we're trying to rate who is the greatest character of them all. Currently, it is, I think, Abyss. Big surprise there. Very little-known character who Dan turned me around on with his Nietzschean philosophy. Now, we've done 5 episodes of A-based characters. Not A-based, but their names begin with A. But I realise we need to jump around a bit more because otherwise we're going to be stuck in A forever. So every 6 episodes, I get really mixed up with issues and episodes, we're going to go to the God tier. Now, the God tier is a character who is automatically going to get through to the next round. This is based on some sports stuff that I don't really understand. But he's automatic, or she is automatically going to go through to the next round. And this week, because of Xmen 97, a cartoon which has come out on Disney, which I've been watching with my daughter and my son, and which is, I think, we're 6 episodes into that, I think it might be one of the best comic adaptations of all time. It's that good, guys. And within that is, well, he's sort of become the main character, quite shockingly, is Magneto, the master of magnetism. Very exciting. I think he might be my favourite hero or character. He's not real. Well, hero, villain, devil or angel. I mean, it's like Julian Assange. Let's not get political. There's a lot of politics in the comics we're going to talk about, which are very relevant to what is going on in the world today. We're going to try and circumnavigate that, not because we're absolute cowards, but because we don't have time, we don't know what we're talking about, really. And also, my son and daughter love this podcast, which makes me so happy. And so I want to make it not too horrific and upsetting. They point out when I'm swearing, Dad, you're swearing, which is far too much. So anyway, Magneto, the master of magnetism. Boys, had you heard of him? What did you know about Magneto?
Oh, well, I mean, this was the first one really that I'd heard of.
Okay.
So far, I was like, oh right, I know him. Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's as you say, God tier, isn't he? He's in the movies.
He's in the movies. Have you seen him in the movies, played by Ian McKellen, then Michael Fassbender?
Yeah, I saw Ian McKellen. Yes, Fassbender. I can't remember whether I saw that one or not. That's when I perhaps started to stop watching the films.
He plays Fassbender where it's set in the past and it's a younger Magneto. I quite like the idea that he goes from this, you know, when they sort of have someone playing someone as a younger person, and the idea that Ian McKellen, who we adore, but, you know, is quite a short, wrinkled, sort of like little old man. a wonderful little old man. Little old man is maybe a bit, but you know what I mean? But the idea that before that he's this incredibly hunky Adonis, sort of strapping Michael Fassbender. Why not? Why not?
Age.
But
Age
they're both brilliant. Age does shrink you, as I haven't started shrinking yet, but I will, I'm sure. So, Jamie, any quick thoughts on Magneto, the master of magnetism?
Yeah, I mean,
there.
I think I'm most familiar with the Shurian, which is one of obviously the most fun voices to do. So we're all going to do a bit of that at some point today, I imagine. But yes, I'm most familiar with that one.
Sarina McKellen.
Yes, and also the Fassbender business. But otherwise, yeah, I was fairly new to the comics. As is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I should point out, you jumped a little bit there, Jamie. We are in the shed, so the internet's not great. Okay, great. Anyway, let's launch in. We don't have a lot of time. And one question I'll ask before we jump in. How did he just roughly compare to the Ian McKellen version that you've both seen? Let's put Fassbender to one side.
Go on.
Sorry, Jamie.
Go on, Dan. I was going to say, across the movies, I think it covers like pretty much the same topics. You get a little bit of good Magneto and a little bit of bad Neto. So it spanned the genres, both of them.
I felt generally in the films, I mean, he is the villain of all three films, less so in the second one, but I feel like I think it was more evil, more out and out evil than what we see here. But anyway, Dan, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's probably fair. I mean, I don't know what you've curated, of course, Colin. If there's some comics where he is really evil out there that we didn't get to see. But yeah, I agree. I think there was a similar journey of we saw him perhaps trying to do the right thing, but through his own methods.
But is it the right thing?
Yeah.
That's the big question, isn't it?
I think in the more recent X-Men, there is, I think because sooner or later, Sir Ian McKellen has to be friends with Patrick Stewart. So there is a sort of, they do work together in those later films. They're best of friends.
Yeah, I saw them do Waiting for Godot, which was kind of good, but it was a bit of a love-in, you know. It was a bit like they literally at the end just did a little dance, which I don't think, because I think it's a Samuel Beckett play, and Samuel Beckett famously, you're not allowed to change anything. Samuel Beckett, whoever they are, the Samuel Becketts, they're coming to get you. They're like AIM. They're like advanced idea. Advanced ASM, advanced Samuel Beckett mechanics. They don't let you change anything, but at the end they just did a little dance, which I guess they could get away with it by saying, well, that's a epilogue or something. I don't know. Just sort of danced. Just did a little like, ho, it's us, which undermined the whole play. And I got to be honest, we haven't got to Magneto yet. I don't get that play. Don't think I ever will. So I've given up. Given up trying. Spent years pretending I got it. I don't think anyone gets it. Right, but I do get Magneto. God, I get that guy. I think I do. He's flitting all over the shop. He's not fripping like Abyss, but he is flitting. So, first of all, we read X-Men #1, the first entry of the X-Men ever in the world. This is the first time they ever appeared. A few little bits of trivia for you. Originally, they were going to be called The Mutants. The comic was just going to be called The Mutants. Maybe a better name. Don't know. No, it's not, is it? X-Men's great. I like how X-Men they're obviously led by Professor X, or created by Professor X, but he stresses that they're not called X-Men because he's Professor X. They're called X-Men because they have extra powers. And I think it's because you're Professor X, isn't it? Come on. Come on. Oh, no, God, no. Oh, God, yeah, you're right. It is, isn't it? Oh, and do you know what? I genuinely never thought of that. To be fair, my most famous character creation, I use famous with a small f, is, of course, the actress Anna Mann. It's one of my characters I play. And someone pointed out to me, oh, it's like Anna Mann, like a man, isn't it? And I was like, oh, that's a terrible joke. Oh, no. And I genuinely didn't realise. So maybe Professor X isn't lying. I genuinely didn't realise there was the gag, a man, in my characters and a man. Right, we're going. I've tried to stay on topic and I'm failing dreadfully. So, originally it was called The Mutants. The other thing about the X-Men is, obviously it's like massive, hugely popular, much beloved now, but this was an absolute failure as a comic. We had Spider-Man, Avengers, Fantastic Four, all those guys came out in the 1960s, all created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. When I say failure, it was fine, but no one really read it. And to the point where they eventually stopped producing new episodes and just repeated old episodes. They just became reprints. So I think when you get to like issue 65 or something, and then X-Men is relaunched in 75, I think it is, or 74, with Wolverine, Storm and all that. And that's when they became massively popular. So this initial iteration of the X-Men were pretty much unknown. Described as the strangest superheroes of all. What was your general feel of the original X-Men? I've written down questions and everything just from this issue. I know we're getting onto Magneto, but you know.
Well, I mean, okay. Beast, who I recognise from the films, he ain't blue.
He's not blue.
What? You know. And
Just a big man.
Big man, yeah. Who can do like circus tricks and things. But he's like, yeah, he's not the Beast that I know and love, for sure.
Massive hands and feet.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Hobbit-like feet, but yeah, he was very different.
Do you think his hands are rough or smooth?
Oh, no, I think rough, personally. I mean, I think he's quite a rough fellow, generally.
Would you like to be cradled by the Beast?
I think it would start off with quite a nice hug, but then it could get a bit, you know, a bit rough, I think.
You're suffocating me, Beast. Yeah, okay.
Get off me.
Fine.
Yeah.
No fur on the Beast.
No, and he's not
That's
super
not
intelligent either, is he?
Weird thing, euphemism. Sorry.
He's
not super intelligent. No, they're all a bit, apart from Cyclops, they're all just a bit jockey, aren't they? They're all a bit blokey. And so you got Cyclops, Beast, Angel, Iceman, and then Jean Grey joins.
They're a bit sort of frat boy, aren't they? And then Iceman is like, I think they say 16, so he's not allowed to participate properly in any of the fun shenanigans yet. And they haven't had a mission yet. Like, this is their training. So the premise, the first half of the comic is basically Professor X putting them through their training, which is all a little bit sort of schoolboy in the school hall, you know, climbing ropes and jumping over things. Obviously, just it's classic, like introducing their powers one by one. But it is a bit, it's a slow start, I thought.
You thought it was like a bit boring. And they're all like talking at the same time, aren't they? Like, shut up.
It's like, do this, jump off this, now avoid this.
They're absolute suck-ups to him as well. I've got at one point they said to Professor X, I feel like he comes across so weird and creepy. And I guess it was just, I mean, these were the days when people trusted the scouts, for God's sake. You know, so I guess it was just having, a bald old weird man, just having these boys just making them jump over stuff and enter death traps. They're absolute death traps. There's one that's, I think, called the Spanner. And it's just like a massive spanner spinning round. And Angel's got, if that touches him, he's gone.
Yeah.
Also, little tip bit, Angel, I think because he's a bird at some point, I don't know whether they keep to this, but they say he's got hollow bones. So he'd just be dust, wouldn't he?
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Smashed to piece. So, yeah, I think he does come across quite weird and creepy. And there is a bit, they are suck-ups. At one point, Angel goes, I've written one down. Let's make him more comfortable while he puts us through our paces. Oh, shut up. Hey, Prof, can I get you a soda? It's all that kind of stuff. Right?
Oh,
but he's really not. He's not in any way like, oh, yeah, thanks, my boys. You're great. Come on, we're going to do this together. We're great. He's just like, do what I say. He's really unpleasant, don't you think? Sorry, Jamie, what are you going to say?
Well, you were saying get him a soda, and I think actually it's one of the first examples of cross-promotional because straight away they mentioned Coke.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, he actually says, I'll get you a Coke at some point. Because I thought, I didn't remember product placement being a thing back there, because this is what, 1963, something?
I mean, I think it was probably more the opposite. I think it's probably everywhere. But there's just people, no one cared because we're just like, well, this society exists to make as much money as possible. And we're all in that. We're all part of all the businesses by being consumers, which I guess is still the case now, isn't it? But there was that weird time where people did some good things for society around the late 60s.
I did see one of the most important things I think from the opening of this comic is that Professor X actually says X-Men stands for extra power, and I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's why
I said that earlier.
X-Men.
Did you miss me saying that earlier, Jake?
I did.
I said it earlier.
Only in
it
this
was
episode.
really funny. It was like 10 minutes of content. No, I just said how. No, I like the idea that it's as if he's. I'm now repeating something which listeners have already heard, so this is doubly pointless. But yeah, he says, sorry, it stands for extra powers. Yes. Well, you can listen back, Jamie, and hear me talk about that. What's your take on that? I'd love to hear it. What's your take on him saying that, Jamie?
I just thought it was kind of rammed in right at the very beginning. It's like we need to explain this as quickly as possible.
Okay.
It just sounds like you did.
I think they do say it's from the A-bomb as well, don't they? That they're mutants from the A-bomb. It's not, because nowadays with the mutants, it's like, are they because of radiation? Are they because of evolution? But in this, it's just, nope, it's an A-bomb. Was it Professor X's parents worked on the A-bomb or something like that? Oh, have I imagined that? That definitely comes up at some point, but I think they mentioned it there. Anyway, then Jean turns up. They're all absolutely obsessed with her. It's quite obscene. We've already talked about this. I want my kids to listen, so I don't really want to say the things that I was saying beforehand. But basically, they're teenage boys. It's pretty accurate in that sense, isn't it? She's a girl. She's the first girl. It's as if she's the first girl they've ever seen. And they just go absolutely mad for her. And sort of, just try and make her like them the best. But Cyclops, who of course ends up her actual husband at one point, he's very genteel, gentlemanly-like. I like how he dresses as well. He looks like a real nerd in that sort of tank top. Yeah, go on, Jamie.
They do look like nerds. I like Angel's reaction was my favourite when Jean Grey appears because he says she has one very obvious power. The power to make a man's heart beat faster. Like, you sly old dog, Angel. There you are.
Angel's real name is Warren Kenneth Worthington III. I've always remembered that. That's always stuck in my head. Okay, great. I thought there was something quite Team America about Professor X. You know, the guy Team America, the sort of lead. He's got that kind of Charlie's Angels leader, hasn't he, kind of thing. It says, a strange, silent man sits motionless, brooding alone with his indescribable thoughts. I think he's just not right, is he? He's a bad egg. He's a bad egg.
Did Patrick Stewart also play Charlie in Charlie's Angels? Or the...
I don't know. I don't think I've ever actually watched it. I think Bill Murray was in it, but was he Charlie? I don't know.
I think that was the newer one, wasn't it? I don't know.
Maybe.
He was Bosley, I think.
Anyway, you probably want all these creeps blown away, blasted to pieces, don't you? I don't think we want to be on their side. Although I did quite like Iceman. I like that Iceman initially just looks like a snowman. He's literally a snowman in boots. And Professor X says at one point, you can have 15 minutes free play, which I quite liked because he's a kid. He's just allowed to play. And he does. He puts coal on his eyes and, what fun they have. Anyway.
He's not allowed to go near the spanner. Don't go near the spanner.
Don't go near that massive death trap. You'll be all right. That's 15 minutes. Okay, we've got to introduce Magneto. He looks, here are my thoughts similar. He looks amazing. He's got that big old Roman helmet. He comes in and I'm just, wipe him out, Mags. Get rid of them all, except Jean, of course. We all love Jean. But I love that. It surprised me how so quickly he's talking about Homo superior, the idea that mutants are this next evolution. I think that's very Alan Moore level type stuff, isn't it? That's very kind of, that feels very like a jump ahead from Spider-Man or Fantastic Four or any of those things, It's already quite exciting sociological kind of the conflict that's going to happen here is already there right from the beginning. But he is a baddie. He is an out-and-out baddie, I think. Don't know, what's he trying to do? He's trying to nick all the bombs, take over the base.
Well, I mean, you know he's a baddie. Straight away on the cover, it says Earth's most powerful supervillain.
Earth's most powerful villain. It says that on the front. Yeah.
We've already discussed how on every single front cover, everyone is the most powerful supervillain when they get introduced.
Yes.
But
I think in this case, it could be true.
Yeah, and it's confirmed here because he's getting snowballs thrown at him and it doesn't defeat him on that front cover. So I knew he meant business. He was really quite powerful.
I don't remember that bit.
Yes, Iceman's throwing snowballs at him, and yet it doesn't defeat him. So I was like, right, yeah, this guy's strong.
Okay, so science question straight off. His power is he controls magnets, fundamentally, right? Is it that he controls magnets or he is a magnet? He's like a living magnet. So he can move metal around. And in the movies, to be fair, they do tend to keep it just to him moving metal around in quite extreme ways, but still, Whereas right from the beginning, he can pretty much do everything. Like, how would magnets stop snowballs? I don't know.
Well, there is some crazy science here that I can apply. But
Okay.
I will remind you, it was a very long time ago. But there is the magnetism, the electromagnetism that affects ferrous stuff, metal stuff. But there's some funky magnetism called diamagnetism and paramagnetism that affects everything. But it is very, it's very, very weak. So you don't see it in everyday life. You only really see the normal magnetism, but it is a thing. So if his power is so great, then yes, through the electromagnetic shenanigans, he could affect other things. But
this is genuinely, as a 45-year-old man, this is like, I felt actual joy then. Because I love Magneto to bits, as you could probably tell. And I've spent years going, but they just kind of do anything with it and it doesn't really work, but you've gone, no, it is possible.
Yeah.
And also, we're only looking at these fundamental forces of nature and analysing them and stuff. We're not in them. He is in them. He is a part of them. So he'll find stuff that we don't even... I mean, by that virtue, you can just say he's a cosmic cube. He can do anything. But, I mean, he can't just create life, for example. But he does spell his signature out in the sky.
Yeah, that was my absolute favourite bit about this.
Beautiful.
You know he's a bad guy because he writes, "Surrender the base or I'll take it by force," and then he signs his name in cursive underneath, Magneto.
That's the word, cursive, was it? Okay, bit of internet issues there. But basically, he signs... Jamie, tell us about that again, if you could just tell us that a little bit very quickly.
So he kind of destroys a bunch of stuff, and then using the metal, the ferrous, which is a great word that Dan's just given me, using the ferrous objects, he writes in the sky, in the sort of metal dust, he writes... surrender the base or I'll take it by force. And then underneath he signs it Magneto. But he's kind of signed it like he's been practicing his signature at home. Like, how am I going to sign? I'll do a curly M and I'll do a little swish at the end. His G is lovely. His G is very, very playful.
So one thing to point in that thing is his name, Magneto, which I always thought was Magneto if the films came out. But can we get past how stupid that name is?
Not really when people around him shorten it to Maggie. That's not helpful. At that point, it's like, okay, it's a bit silly. I mean, Mags would have been fine, I guess, but Maggie is a bit not evil, really, is it? Unless let's not get into politics.
I feel like he's become so powerful a character in consciousness, maybe it's just in my mind, that we accept it as an okay name. Yeah. But it's just Magnet with O on the end. Is a Magneto a thing in real life? I think maybe it is. I feel like once I saw that it was, but it's just like a transistor or something. It just means like, you know, it's like calling yourself circuit switch.
Oh, Circuito.
Circuito. So eventually the X-Men turn up and they beat him just by hitting him loads, and then eventually he goes, sod it, I'm off. Is that essentially what happens, basically, isn't it? I think Cyclops is the one who sort of opens his blaster on him, and that's like, all right, sod this, I'm off. I did like as well, they described the fighting mad base personnel. The fighting mad base personnel. There's very much a sense that Army is good. Bombs is good. American bombs is very good. You take Americans' bombs, you is bad. I feel like that's very much... So it's quite a simplistic... He's a simplistic villain at this point, but I think a good opponent, the older man, the older brutal man against these teenage positive figures, their positivity. He's not so much negativity, but he's a dark force, isn't he? He's control and taking over, and they are just trying to do the right thing. Okay, great. That's my summing up. Would you agree with that? Right, then we jump to, and we'll sort of put these together, written by Chris Claremont, X-Men 112, drawn by John Byrne, and then X-Men 161, written by Chris and drawn by the lovely Dave Cockrum. Claremont and Byrne, so you know, are probably the most legendary X-Men creators of all time. Much beloved. They're the ones that created the X-Men you all know and love. Or they didn't so much create them, but they made them really good. And Chris is all about changing Magneto. One of his big things he does is makes Magneto a more 3D villain, shall we say. So in X-Men 112, Magneto meets the new X-Men, which are now Storm, Colossus, etc. They're in a little floating carriage. They're in this room. Magneto's got them all. What's going on? Nightcrawler teleports out. We're in a floating carriage. We're floating through the sky. A lot of fun, that. A lot of fun. They're floating over the Andes Mountains. And they get attacked by planes, and I was trying to work out who the planes are. What government would that be, Dan? You've been to South America. Is the Andes?
Well, the Andes stretches, across South America. It could be anywhere from, it could be Colombia, Bolivia, Peru, Chile. It could be any of that lot,
They call each other like Cortez, I think. One's called Ortiz, maybe. But it's fun because they just seem completely like American fighter pilots. They just have sort of Spanish-y sounding names. But anyway, he's got another baddie with him called Mesmero, who he very considerately takes back to Earth. I found that quite satisfying. I think one of the things with Magneto's powers, they're very satisfying to watch them. So they're flying through in this carriage. They've got this other guy, Mesmero, and he just sort of throws him out the window. And they go, oh, God, you've killed that man. And he says, no, it's all right. I just gently glided him back to Earth. Beautiful.
I think to tie those two things together, the pilots at that point is my favourite moment in this comic. As Mesmero's falling down from the sky, the pilots are talking to each other. They say, we'll follow him down, we'll send helicopters to find the body, and then, my friend, we will fly home and get very, very drunk.
Quite right.
Professional army men there.
What was your take on this, Daniel? Any thoughts on this one, on Magneto in particular?
Well, yeah, you brought up the question of his powers, and I think in the last comic, I guess when you introduce new characters, you have to sort of calibrate these powers because, like, it comes in the first one with just like incredible like power levels, and in this one again, like he can simultaneously control Mesmero's descent, the piloting of this wagon. They then go into some lava, and he shields that against the lava. He does all of this at the same time. There's a lot going on with this fella. And in the last one, he was able to project his power over several miles to control these missiles. So he's got the range as well. I think they then sort of perhaps dial this back as time goes on. But at first, I'm like, wow,
I think that's good as well, having a villain where you've got 6 powerful heroes, whatever it is, 6 or 7, and you got to have someone who can just wipe the floor with all of them.
But I like I like rules.
Yes, no, you're right.
So what I mean is, I like you having an idea of, okay, so here's a guy and he can control, let's say, metal. He can control metal. What happens when he goes up against someone who can run really fast, or like when you can define their powers and then you bash them together and see what happens? I think that's cool. But if it's like a bit too wishy-washy and then they pull out this extra power that you didn't know they have to win, it's like, well, I didn't know about that. Oh, okay, fine. So I like the terms being fairly understood
I agree.
and then explored.
They do explain the science.
Yeah, sort of as it happens, they're kind of, I can do this because I've got this power. So it's kind of, as a reader, you're like, oh, okay, fair enough. That makes sense.
As it goes on, I haven't included any 90s comics this time. As I've said before, they're not great, a lot of the 90s ones. And in that, he can just do anything. Like, they attack him and he just goes, blah! And just stuff comes off him. And they all just go, ah! But also, by the same token, they get blasted but never die. So it's like, well, what is do you know what I mean? They just kind of, I've been knocked over for a second so that you can talk for a bit. It's like that. So, yeah, I love that he's doing all those things at once, though, and you can just, all the things moving around. Oh, it's beautiful. And I love his base as well, where you see a little sort of cross-section of his base under the Antarctic. And apparently he's got like 7 or something all around the world.
Yeah, it's 5 square miles, I think they say, and it says only one of several throughout the globe. So he's obviously, I mean, North Pole, I suppose, would be the obvious, counterbalance. Have one at both ends.
Yeah.
And maybe a holiday one near the equator, somewhere a bit warm. Get your swimmers on.
Caribbean island. I think he does have a Caribbean island at one point. And maybe one in Milton Keynes. Just under the whole of Milton Keynes.
It's very
actually
commutable
built
to
by
London.
Magneto.
Yeah, it's commutable to London, but without the cost. It's cheaper.
I feel like character-wise, he's already changing a bit as well. I feel a bit sorry for him, and I feel like he's a bit lonely and a bit sad and just struggling. He's quite vengeful, isn't he?
Mm.
For reasons we don't really have time to go into, but essentially he got turned into a child. And so in the end, his revenge is he's making them into 6-year-old children and being fed by a nanny robot, which is unique.
The nanny robot was particularly interesting.
Nanny robot was cool.
So it's basically a robot, a very robot-y looking robot dressed in a maid's outfit, which is probably up someone's. It's right in the middle of someone's.
Every red-blooded man's dream.
It's terrifying.
Good job. The original X-Men went there. That's all I can say. They would have got very excited. But yeah, we're already seeing this. I think he has respect for them as well. Don't you feel like he respects them a bit? And he's I think he's trying to get them on his side a bit more, isn't he? He's trying to sort of, whereas in the first one, he's a bit more like, I'll just kill you all then. Do you know what I mean? Whereas this time he feels, yeah, okay. Then we move to 161.
Sorry, I do have a question.
Sorry, Dan.
Sorry. It mentions somewhere in there that he gets resurrected by Eric the Red.
Yeah.
What on earth is that all about?
Eric the Red. Yeah, that's a curveball, isn't it?
What was that?
One of the beauties of these comics is that they have to sort of follow on what's gone before. And some of the ideas that have gone before are written by mad people or just people who just don't care or don't understand any of it. But that's part of the beauty of it for me, in that you've got to somehow... So Eric the Red, I think initially is just this... But why is he called Eric the Red? I mean, he's such a... But he has come back many times, and he's actually like an alien character who's chosen the name Eric the Red. But who thought of that?
So he's already died. Magneto's died at this point and then brought back.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well.
Yeah.
And we do find these things out slightly, because I noticed around about this period of the comics, like these two in particular, there's a lot of cross-referencing, because So they're kind of suddenly, there'll be a little bit at the bottom that says, as was revealed in issue 58 or as seen in comic 45. It's like, oh, you remember when this happened? So if you want to check that out, you'll have to go and buy that comic.
Which I love. And that's part of the collector nerd, probably very neurodiverse joy of comics, isn't it? I think. I'll go and get that one, man. But and then of course with Marvel Unlimited, we can read them all. But it really sounds like I'm advertising for them, doesn't it? What else was I going to say about that? Yeah, there's also even things where he goes, is it in this one where he says, I came to fight you after stopping off to fight Doctor Doom and Captain America. And then it's like asterisk in issue Marvel Team Up 21 or something like that. And felt unnecessary. So they've also got to explain everything that's going on all the time, which is does become a bit laborious and tedious, doesn't it?
Well, I assume this was
like at this point.
With no internet around at the time, I expect this is how they sold most copies because, friends would get together and compare issues and like, has anybody got 45? We need to find out. I don't want to be the sap that doesn't know how Doctor Doom ended up here.
Yeah.
I've got to go and read that now.
Wonderful stuff. Right. X-Men 161. Boom. What a game changer. What an absolute game changer in a word. What do we think of this one? One thing I just want to say is he's really got lovely hair, hasn't he? He made me think of Steve Martin, but also Henry Kelly from Going for Gold. That I don't know why he made me think of him, but he does look a bit like him. He's got lovely hair. It's very white. I think it's always been white, which is one of these things with mutants that I quite like, that they've all, there's one called Polaris has got green hair. Jean's obviously got that bright red hair. I quite like they've just got weird hair. It's just a little way of noticing they're a mutant. And he's got shock white hair from when he's a young man. What did we think of this one? I want to hand it over to you, Jamie. You've got a lot to say about this.
Oh well,
also it's a political powder keg, so I'm going to let you.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a lot I'd like to say, but I'd be terrified of saying it. I mean, this has got everything. It's fair to say it's full of Nazis. It's still very much like a post-war comic in terms of. So there's Baron Strucker.
Yeah.
Baron Strucker is, to give you an idea of his sort of oeuvre, one of his opening lines is, "Where our beloved Adolf Hitler failed, Hydra will succeed." Beloved doing a lot of heavy lifting there and really pointing towards where we've gone. They have redeveloped the Nazis. They all now wear sort of green outfits and sort of Ant-Man-like helmets. So they all look exactly the same.
So they're Hydra. Hydra is S.H.I.E.L.D's opposite or arch enemy. So Baron Strucker is actually kind of Nick Fury's arch enemy, Nick, who we've met already. Mm-hmm. But the crux of the story is that we meet Professor X and Magneto as young men together. And I think this is the first time anyone knew this.
Right.
I mean, now because of the films, we assume they've always got friends. But until this point, I don't think it had ever been suggested they were mates.
Right. So we have gone back in time, haven't we? So this is...
It's a flashback story.
They don't look a lot younger, but some younger. They're not they're not like Fassbender and James McAvoy young. They are sort of middle-aged-ish.
Yeah. Yes. And they are... what are they doing? Oh, yeah, so Professor X is helping a woman. Oh, I love this as well. Professor X, much prefer him in this. He's not creepy and weird. He does a few questionable things, but he's helping a young woman who is a victim of the Holocaust. Mm-hmm. And, oh, my God, that explanation of that bit is not nice. Very upsetting. And a lot of images that are used in American Werewolf in London. Do you remember that film? Where he has the nightmares where sort of Nazi monsters come in and very similar images. I think they must have got it from this. Anyway, but he helps a young woman called Gabrielle Haller, who is traumatized so much by what happened to her, and he helps bring her back from the edge. And Magneto is a young man, well, youngish, I guess he's in his 30s or something, helping the people in this hospital recover. And that's how they meet. And of the three of them, I think it would be quite a good 90s sitcom. You know, kind of like a thank you for being a friend. That was I'm not sure what that was. But, you know, there's a thing where the three of them are just all smiling, and it really looked like one of those sort of like hanging out in the 90s, just having fun. But you know, so they become best friends. But then it turns out that Gabrielle has a secret of where this Nazi gold is kept, and because she's come back out of her trauma, she can now remember where it is. So Strucker and his gang turn up and capture them. And Magneto says, doesn't he just destroy them all? He goes, we see him do I believe it's called a heel turn?
Yes.
Wrestling?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Turns out he wants the gold as well.
He does want the gold, which I found very satisfying, the way he powered it all up into a beautifully perfect cube.
Absolutely.
With his powers. That's what I love. Magneto's very neat, isn't he?
Yeah, he's tidy.
Very odd. I think that's what really appeals to me about him. But that is quite a unpleasant totalitarian thing, isn't it? Probably neatness and order. But I look at it and go, oh, that's very satisfying. I'd love that. Being an ADHD person, you know.
Going back to your diamagnetism, I believe gold is particularly tricky to do that too. So he's really showing off here.
Oh,
I think.
What, normal magnets don't work on gold? How do you make a magnet? Can you make a magnet? Of course you can, because otherwise magnets
You
aren't
can make an
naturally...
electromagnet by using.
By using what?
You know things like your doorbell.
Yeah.
You press it and it. That's using a little magnet, a little electromagnet, where it starts the electric current, which makes it magnetic. It then is attracted to strike to make that dong, but then in so doing breaks the connection, so it stops being a magnet, and then when it falls back, it reconnects, makes the magnet bong, so it keeps going. Brrrr.
So he could have a lot of fun with doorbells. He could just be like constantly, I'm waiting on an Amazon package right now. He would be absolutely pranking me.
That's it. Yeah.
What a rogue. What do we think of Magneto in this then? He wipes out all the Nazis, again, always satisfying to see, and takes all the gold for himself to start his own empire. And this is, I guess, we're already getting into this, well, but you're becoming a Nazi. Oh, we're on...
Well, it's
sensitive ground.
There is a sort of eugenics type feel, isn't there? I mean, there's a lot of... I know there's another issue that we're going to come on to where it becomes a sort of religious thing. Where, you know, the humans are human and the mutants are mutants and they need separating. And Magneto is kind of coming at it from the other way and saying, you know, we need to kind of sort of cast off the humans because we're better than they are.
Which is
it's
pure Nazism, isn't it, really?
A little bit Nazi, yeah. A little bit Nazi.
Ooh.
But I must say, I think it's great that... through comics we can explore these topics.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to just go straight to that topic. You can use art to explore it. I think that's a great thing.
And what did you...
People.
I know, like, a lot of it's kind of, they're old comics and funny stuff, but it reaffirmed for me that Chris Claremont, the writer, is a very good writer. Didn't you think? I thought there's some bits that were maybe a bit, you know, Barbara Cartlandy almost, as in quite melodramatic about them falling in love and all that, Professor X and Gabrielle. But I thought it very affecting and really, I believed all the characters. They were all, and Baron Strucker and the Nazis were so horrible.
Yeah.
Like, was so unpleasant, and they weren't moustache twirling, you know, they were vicious thugs. Great.
Slightly undermined by the fact that they all had very stereotypical German names that they referred to each other. So even though they're all in these kind of costumes, they're all the same. Is like, oh, what do you think, Fritz? Oh, not bad, Rolf.
Oh, Rolf. I did spot a Rolf. Yeah. Was there a Hans? There was probably a Hans.
I didn't see one. I think it was hands-free, to steal that. Joke.
But at this point, the Nazis still aren't that long ago, are they? So they are... These aren't even like nowadays. This would be a new generation of Nazis, wouldn't it? Whereas this, This was still the
was-
original Nazis who survived.
The OG.
Great. But yeah, already very complicated, isn't it? Very, very interesting. And again, there's a lovely bit where he blasts a hole in the mountain. I'm not sure what that blast was. I'm not sure how that is magnet based, that he just blasts a hole straight up through the mountain. But I did love the the sections cut. Is that what's called? What's it called? Cut section? I'm now getting into Caesarean terms. It's not what I'm suggesting. Anyway, we see the side of the mountain. God, what boring thing to say. Daniel, could you cut all that last bit? I just said we see the side of a mountain. Actually, keep it in, Daniel, because it's quite funny. Probably.
I do quite
Right,
like
okay. Any more to say on that one? Because we are running out of time, definitely. Yep.
I do quite like that Magneto actually says, he actually explains to Baron Strucker, he says, if I'd have had my powers at the time, I would have ended the war and stopped.
Oh, yeah.
But he hadn't developed his powers yet, so he was powerless to do anything about it.
Wow. Which is sort of speaks to like everyone to a degree, just life as an adult. If I'd known what I'd known, if I could have articulated, do you know what I mean? Or if I could have dealt with what was going on then with the stuff I know now,
Then
that he
Dad
could have
would never
actually
left.
ended the whole war. Yeah. Wouldn't that be a wonderful story, actually, where he did end the war? That would be quite an exciting. They've done similar things, as in, an alternative one. I don't think they've actually done that, though. That's such a good line. Right. Wonderful. Well done, Magneto. You beat the Nazis. But he's becoming a villain. So this is actually where he becomes a villain, retroactively. If we'd done this chronologically, I guess we'd start with that one. But we haven't. So, right, we're going to talk about this further on the Patreon, which I've just set up, which is abombtozzzax. Capitals on abomb and Zzzax, and Zzzax has 3 Zs, just to make it really hard. Patreon.com/abombtozzzax. Please join us there, where we're going to start putting extra material on. Also, I haven't worked out the tiers yet, but basically you can make suggestions of comics you want us to read, characters you want us to jump ahead to. All you have to do is pay us so we can keep this podcast going and justify the amount of time we are wasting with our lives. So then we got to God Loves, Man Kills. What a title already. An epic story. So much in it. I think it's like a Watchmen almost. I think it's not quite there because partly I think the artwork is often quite bad. I don't like to criticize anything, but the artwork just looks quite boring, dare I say, in places. Although in some places it does get across the horror quite well. But I think it should almost be up there, yeah, with Alan Moore Watchmen. It's also just too crammed with words and stuff. But anyway, we're talking about that. We're going to talk about that on the extra bit on Patreon. Magneto himself is amazing. His use of powers, subtle stuff. I like the way he just like... so it starts with 2 children being murdered. Yeah. Horrible start. 2 mutant children being murdered by mutant killers, by essentially Nazis, but they kill mutants. It's quite a basic way to say it, but yeah. Magneto finds their bodies, and there's the way he just takes them down from the swings. It's very, and you're like, yeah, you're right, Magneto. Yeah, just kill them all, It's really sort of, God, so powerful. What did you guys think of the whole thing generally? I'll tell you what, I'm very quickly going to say the story, which is that ultimately this guy called William Stryker, who is a big evangelical type preacher, very similar to a lot of things going on now. He seems very Trumpian. I'm going to say it straight off the bat. William Stryker, and he's running on the idea that mutants are the devil, they are Satan, and the X-Men get captured by him. And then, ultimately in the story, he's going to make Professor X kill all the mutants on Earth by hooking him to this machine. And it's the same plot of X-Men 2, you might notice, although they're quite cowardly in X-Men 2, but probably, understandably, make him a army colonel rather than a preacher. because obviously it's very, and even today this is very controversial in America. But imagine at the time when this came out, this was in the 1980s. So this was extremely controversial, I think, and it doesn't mess around with this idea. It's full on says like religion is a means of killing and controlling, and people use it and exploit it and all that stuff. It doesn't really suggest, I don't think at any point, that there's a good side to religion, really. Anyway, there we go. Magneto, what do we think of him in this?
I exactly as you said, I've got my notice. Magneto wants to avenge the cold-blooded killing of 2 children. I can kind of get behind that.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, I think it was like, you know, the whole save the cat thing in storytelling, where you straight away you make somebody do a good thing at the beginning, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm behind them now. It was kind of the inverse, where it's like he's going to go on a murderous rampage, but it's because those 2 kids got shot. So we're kind of sympathetic to him.
Almost like a sort of Charles Bronson, that's an old reference, but, you know, a kind of Clint Eastwood type movie where someone just goes on a revenge spree and kills all the baddies. That's kind of what you want. Although that isn't really what happens particularly.
No, but, you know, you're kind of with him at that bit. You're like, yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you in a way. And I love the way it then immediately, I think the writing's so good in this, that it then immediately sets up the whole eye for an eye thing. Because I think, is it Stryker's reading the Bible and he looks at the eye for an eye section of it. And it sets up Storm as a pagan goddess as well. She's referred to as that. So it's everything about it is within these religious terms, setting it all up. I think it's a great setup for this comic. I love it.
This came out originally as a graphic novel, which I think maybe is how they got around the adultness of it and the controversialness of it. But it does feel like Chris Claremont, the writer, it really feels like he's just sat down and something has pissed him off, and he's just sat down and gone, right, do you know what I mean? And written it one fevered evening. You know, it's a really angry comic.
It's about the inconsistencies of religion, isn't it? It's about like certain like key people in religion kind of pushing their own sort of ideas onto it and using Christianity almost as a sort of shield from like, well, I can't be a bad person because I'm a Christian. But he says at one point, he says, whatever a man's color or beliefs, he's still human. Mutants are not. And that's because in this version, in this comic, it's very brutal. His wife is pregnant, and they're out. His background is his wife is pregnant. They're out in the desert. She gives birth at the side of the road, and it's a mutant. The child is a mutant, and he recognizes that immediately. And he puts the wife and child back. Well, he snaps the wife's neck, and then puts them back in the car, and blows himself up as well.
Yeah,
but he survives, and the kind of. He's then so hell-bent against mutants that he will just rid the world of them. So despite being a sort of man of God, love.
Sorry, Jamie, say that last line. Sorry, Jamie, say that last bit again. Just because it cut out.
He's so twisted by those events that, he justifies it through religion. He's a godly man, but he adds all the love thy neighbor stuff applies until the one thing that he can't abide, and that's mutants.
So back to God Loves, Man Kills, very briefly, Magneto's role within it. 2 things I just want to point out. We've sort of talked about him already. Well, 3 things. 1, he does seem very kind and convincing, and he looks a lot like Stryker. Unfortunately, they've both got exactly the same hair and sort of look like the same man, which is a bit like Henry Kelly. Do I mean Henry Kelly? No, I mean Roy Walker from Catchphrase. Is what I mean. Remember him? It's good, but it's not right. They both look like him. But maybe that's a good contrast. I don't know. But Magneto, they do have a little talk about, because obviously Magneto joins the X-Men for a brief time, or doesn't join them, but helps them out. They ally to stop Stryker because this is so horrific that, they have a truce, essentially. But he does talk about his dictatorship, and he from what I could gather, I found the one bit that was a little bit wishy-washy, or I couldn't quite understand what he was saying as such. But he's essentially saying, I do want a dictatorship, but there is such a thing as the benevolent dictatorship. So I would be in charge, but I would stop hunger and famine, and everyone would be in paradise. Yeah, that doesn't really clear it up for me.
Well, it's
I mean, it is tempting.
It's
you know,
the thing,
there was a
like,
god figure. Sorry, go on, Dan.
Now I can't remember where in the whole annals of philosophy, but that the idea of the benevolent dictator, the philosopher king type role, it's kind of, it's out there as a concept, as like, that is the ideal. Like, if you've got someone with absolute power who's just nice and who does all the right things, then great. It's just, as Cyclops goes on to say, okay, and then what happens after you set this dictatorship? What happens after you?
Yeah.
The next person that comes along is not a benevolent dictator, they're just a dictator. So like in the Roman Empire, for instance,
Yeah.
because I love me Romans, the
Yeah.
Augustus, the first one, he was pretty good. And then you get Tiberius and Nero, Caligula, and, you know,
Yeah.
they're not so good. So it's all very well setting up these dictatorships as long as the person in charge is just really nice.
He's definitely a fan of the Roman Empire as well, isn't he, Magneto? He's definitely gone. He's acquired the helmet, the attitude. Yeah, it is. But that was the first time in my whole life where I thought, God, it's a dreadful thing to have to say. But yeah, sort of really nice dictatorship. Oh, we just didn't have to worry about all this stuff. That'd be great. But it wouldn't, obviously. I hasten to add. And the final thing I want to say, at the end, he sort of offers them to join him, I think, doesn't he? Or he sort of makes his peace with Charles to a degree, but he says, do your best. Or he says, like, keep trying, because if you fail, it will be my turn, is how it ends. So he's sort of giving them a chance, and then he's saying, if you don't achieve it, I'm just coming in, and that's it.
About Stryker, he says he can't give up because he says it's a Pyrrhic victory. He says the man was beaten, but his cause lives on. Already it's being said that Stryker's goal was correct, only his methods flawed. So he's got to kind of continue the fight and that's what people do in cults and stuff.
Yeah.
But, you know, the end of the world cult, it's like, if it's going to happen next Friday, and then Friday comes and it doesn't happen, and they say, it's because it's further on, or, you know, there's always a reason why somebody else. I mean, not to talk politics, but if you look at what Liz Truss is doing at the moment.
That's what I was just about to say.
What I did as Prime Minister was completely right, but I was held back by all of these other people. So we should have another go at it. It's not. And to be fair, on the other side of politics, it's always said about, socialism's never been tried properly, or communism's never been properly tried. So
yeah,
it's the right thing to do, but we have to do it a bit different.
Which I think I've said in the past, in my younger years, I've said, well, but Stalin was a problem that came. That was literally the problem. You got a psychopath came in and killed everyone he didn't like. But no, good, well said. And I was about to mention Liz Truss as well. It immediately made me think of Liz Truss. Because it's true. If people who don't know, she was our Prime Minister for about 6 days. It felt like... I think it was 6 weeks, was it, or something like that? Was it?
I think it was
that
49 days.
Anyway, and she had some insane...
50.
Okay. She had extreme economic ideas, which I'll be honest, I don't really understand, but essentially she completely crashed the economy, and we're still paying for all the damage she did. But rather than hang her head in shame and go away and never come back, she's come back with a vengeance, and now has people like Steve Bannon, who is very much a William Stryker type. Yeah, she goes on his radio shows and stuff and chats, and she's come out with some pro-Trump stuff recently. So they don't go away. And that's the problem, is I think at the heart of them, there is this mad ego, isn't it? That's, I cannot be wrong. Would you like Magneto ruling over you, Dan?
If he spent his time catching people that shot kids, I'd be all right with that. But probably not. No, I guess. No.
Probably not. He's also like Joe Biden age, surely. I mean, if not older. He's not going to be around for long, is he? No way.
No.
Okay. Sometimes the internet goes a bit unstable, but it makes it sound like I've said something incredibly offensive because everyone sort of goes quiet and I think, oh shit. But actually they just didn't hear me. Okay, let's very quickly, just to wrap up, 2 much more modern comics. As I say, I jumped over the 90s. There's also a bit in the early 2000s where Magneto goes full villain, psychopath, murderer guy again, which is really good, actually, those ones, but it's so extreme. They then have to peel back and sort of pretend he was a clone just because it's so like he becomes like a mass murderer. Anyway, forget about that. So jump to Magneto 1, written by, I didn't write it down. I can't remember who wrote it, but I'll try and put it in the notes. Magneto 1 from 2008, I think it was, or 2014 maybe. He has now lost a lot of his powers, damn. So 3 things. He's lost a lot of his powers. His power is literally just moving around bits and bobs and opening doors and ringing doorbells. He's got a completely black costume. He's completely bald. He got rid of that wonderful Roy Walker do. And he has now become a sort of... He's now purely just... He's sort of given up on the cause. And he's just finding people who have hurt mutants, Stryker-type people, or I think in this the first one, a scientist. He's just finding them and killing them. And quite satisfying in a brutal Charles Bronson way.
I love the front. I love the front cover art with the barbed wire helmet thing.
Yeah, very cool.
I thought that was really cool.
Presumably a concentration camp connection, I think there. Okay, yeah.
I was guessing that, yeah. I really liked this. I've got a lot of positive notes here. But one thing I need to ask. It said that he had many names. This bit, you might need a bit of clarification. Max Eisenhardt, Eric Lenzer, Magnus. Why has he got all these names?
I'm not sure. I think originally, the first time you find out his name, it's Magnus. But I think they say that was like a middle name or or a bit like Logan with Wolverine. It's kind of like you don't know what part of his name that is at all. Then Max Eisenhardt, I can't remember that one. I'm not sure where that come from, but Eric Lenscher in the 90s, they just decide to say his name's actually Eric Lenscher for some reason. But I don't know why he goes by all those names. I can't actually tell you which one he definitely is. I read ahead a bit to issue 2 and 3 of these, and it's really cool. I see he was cool, and it's probably the wrong word, but you see him as a young boy, like in the ghetto in Warsaw, sort of avoiding the Nazis and all this sort of stuff. And he's called Max at that point. But even there, he's kind of cool because he's like, even though he's, in the worst possible scenario, he's still got like this sort of long black trench coat with the collar up. So he's still pretty awesome. I think also originally he was Romani in the comics. I think I'm saying that right. But I think now generally he's Jewish, I think. From the films. Often they change stuff to fit in with the films a bit. So I think it's generally considered he was Jewish living in Germany. But in the originals, he was actually, he was, what would have been called Gypsy, which is now an offensive term, I believe. Okay, but we like this guy, this Punisher style Magneto.
It's got a strong start as well, this, isn't it? It's with the fillings. So were you about to talk about that, Jamie? Because you were...
Yeah,
remember that bit, Jamie?
It's a very brutal beginning where someone's recounting what he's seen and saying that he'd seen this guy basically pull the fillings out of someone's mouth. And then he says, and then he threw him outside and he replaced his fillings. And then there's a sort of panel where he's replaced them, but he's replaced them with massive, great big rods of steel. Which are like stop signs, like traffic signs. Yeah, I guess he's like pulled out. Yeah, and just like skewered him. It'd
be funny if they were like those everything must go signs for a particularly like Toys R Us.
Those guys that twirl them as well in the street. So Magneto does a bit of that as well, twirling the signs around to point at the fire sale.
Before ramming them through his throat.
Yeah.
But no care about all those, a lot of people around there as well seeing it. He's like, doesn't care. He traumatized a lot of people there.
Yeah.
I think he's borrowed the Punisher's attitude and wardrobe for this particular comic.
I like that he's like on his last like legs, or he's like, I just don't care anymore.
Yeah,
I'm just doing what I can.
He reminds me sort of like Deckard in Blade Runner. He's going around. So he's kind of going around finding basically purifiers. So there's these sort of cyborgy people who've killed mutants and just getting vengeance. He's full of vengeance. So much vengeance.
A lot of vengeance.
So much vengeance.
Full of it.
Lovely. Right, finally, we get to a very recent comic, X-Men Red, #3. Dropped you both in the deep end here. We don't have time to explain what the hell is going on. But in a nutshell, the X-Men now rule Mars, which has been terraformed, is called Araco. You will find out what's going on. It's my favourite run of comics probably since the Chris Claremont ones. They are amazing. But I wanted to share this one because it's particularly cool. What happens in a nutshell is there's an arena. So there's a load of mutants on Araco. They're not Earth's mutants. They're a subset of mutants who left Earth thousands of years ago and are like these warlike, do you know what I mean? They live for killing or fighting at least, brutal. And so Storm has become their regent on Mars. They have an arena where they solve disputes, again, in a Roman Empire type way. And there's a particularly horrendous villain called Tarn the Uncaring. Is it the Uncaring? Who's great, who I love. My favorite line, he's fighting a guy called Vulcan. And Vulcan says to him, "What do you have to match my fire?" And Tarn says, "Face tentacles." And he does literally have face tentacles, and he uses them to like whack Vulcan out the way. And so within within the story, all that happens is Tarn, the uncaring, beats this guy Vulcan. There's a bigger plot, which you don't have any clue what's going on. And then Magneto comes in to challenge him. And Tarn is particularly feared, evil mutant who he's like a geneticist. He enjoys just play. His power is he can literally play with your genes and just do anything with your DNA, essentially. So he can, make your mouth disappear is one basic thing, but he could do much more, extreme than that. And he's deadly. He's going to kill Magneto, we all think, is the setup. Magneto turns up with his helmet floating next to him. And even though I'd read this, I went, what's he doing? That's weird. Why would he do that? Even though I knew what was going to happen. The battle starts. I'm just going to explain this. The battle starts. Tarn says something like, "Right, now I'm about to kill you," or whatever. Magneto clicks his fingers. The helmet drops on Tom's head. Because the helmet blocks all powers, all psychic powers, Tarn immediately loses his powers, can't do anything, and then Magneto clicks his fingers again, and the helmet crushes his head. Done. Destroys him in 1 second. Well done, Magneto.
It's classic bad guy overconfidence there going into that battle. It's like, well, I'm just going to deal with this, and then it's like, pop that on there and smash off. There we go.
I like the idea that he can also at any point destroy anyone if he really wanted to, if he just thought about it for a second. But there's an extra particular cool thing, which I don't know. I sort of explained this to Dan. I'm not sure he got it. Did you get this, why he wins on top of that, Jamie? Did that make any sense to you?
None of this comic made any sense to me whatsoever.
So in the crowd,
all of the previous ones are kind of chronological. There's a story going through it, and then this one lands, and you're like, "Where am I?"
I kind of like that, though. I like just dropping you into the far future. into just a completely alien world. So there's a bit where in the crowd is a character called Iskar the Unbeaten. Her mutant power is that she cannot lose. So a character called Sunspot, who actually was in one of the AIM comics, but I don't think we read that one in the end. Anyway, he's a bit of a cheeky, tricky customer. And in order to help Magneto win, he bets against Iskar on Tarn. And because she cannot lose, therefore Magneto cannot lose. Because she can't lose the bet. It's just a fun little bit of sneaky.
That's why he can win with such a kind of dirt cheap move.
Yeah, although it takes away the fact that he does win very decisively and coolly. Right. Well, there we go. Dan is completely frozen. He's literally frozen right now, but it also looks like that whole discussion it's just done him. He's finished. Right.
Yeah, we should definitely screenshot that because Dan's face looks like my face when I read that comic. It's just a kind of it's frozen in a perpetual sort of confusion.
Snelgers is sort of out of this. But did you enjoy it, Jamie? Would you say?
I did, yeah.
Or was it just too confused? It's cool, man.
It was a lovely palate cleanser. It was something very different at the end, even though it was like a sort of acid trip of what's going on.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it.
Okay, lovely. Well, listen, Snelgers has left the building. May I suggest, he might be back in a sec, but may I suggest we don't bother, because Magneto's from the God tier, we don't bother giving the rating.
No.
Because he's going through anyway. And then we work out a new system. When we get, he's 100 across the board. When we get to the new system, we have to, so one character out of the previous 5 is going to enter the next tier with Magneto. And then at some point we'll work out the next thing.
It's very scientific.
Wonderful. All right. Well, let's leave it there. Thanks everyone for listening. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Dan. Dan's gone, but we've all got to go because we've all got stuff to do. And we did 2 hours. I apologise, but I loved every second of it. Enjoy it, Jamie?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. All right. Well, I'll say goodbye for Dan. Say goodbye, Jamie.
Goodbye.
Hang on, Dan's... Just to hear him say goodbye. Well, while he's coming back, I'll just say one more time, don't forget patreon.com/abombtozzzax if you want to support our work and get some extra content. And as I said, you can ask, work out the tiers, but you can ask for particular comics you want us to talk about, particular characters you want us to talk about, jumping ahead. Dan's back. Dan, we're just saying goodbye. We're just saying we're not going to do the ratings for Magneto because he's God tier. So he just goes through automatically. Yeah. And then we need to work out how sport works.
Yeah.
If anyone knows how sport works, please do get in touch. All right. Thanks, everyone. See you soon. Say goodbye, boys.
Bye.
See ya. Bye-bye.